For those who don't know, that is the title of his album, The House is Burning by Isaiah Rashad. It released. We finally got this. I think this is the first leg out of TDE when it comes to album releases for this year.
Yep.
I mean, we know there's other artists and anticipations for TDE, but how do you guys feel about the Isaiah Rashad album? Just overall, as well as what do you think this may mean for TDE and for the rest of the year?
Let me go first because I feel like Spence and Nigel, you guys will probably give better breakdowns than me. So, listeners, I'm not a big Isaiah Rashad fan. I know who he was since the Lava demo and the second project. I forgot the name of it, and let's not get into the second one really, but there's nothing wrong with it. I just can't think of the name of it right now. So, I didn't really start being like, okay, I can understand why people like Isaiah Rashad until actually the Lay With You single came out. Then I'm like, okay, I want to hear this album now. I heard the album and I like the album. I think the album is a good album. And I actually listened to the album about 3 times. And my take on the album is this is a good album. I think it's it's better than a lot of rap albums that came out this year because there was a lot of bullshit that came out this year. I can understand why some people wouldn't like it. And the reason why I say that is because of so after you get the first 3 songs, well, I don't know if you want to consider Dark Side a song really, but after you get, the shit with Lil Uzi, I can't remember, something to the Garden, RP Young, which is fire. And then obviously the first single, Lay With You, the album starts taking a one note thing across the thing. There's no hard hitting songs after that. Now that's not necessarily a problem. For me, it's not a problem because I like listening to a lot of rappers where sometimes like the whole project is hard hitting beats. Like for example, Action Bronson Only for Dolphins. There's not a song on there where the beat is like dum 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 dum, dum like some 3-6 Mafia sample. It's it's cool for me. It's cool, but I can understand why somebody wouldn't like that if they don't like that one note kind of sound for the rest of the album. It's about 16 tracks, so I feel like the album to me personally is good. I like the album. But I wouldn't be mad if somebody were like, hey, this isn't their favorite album. Now, they might have different reasons or whatever, but I think Isaiah Rashad is rapping well. I think he's actually trying to tell a story. I actually think that, he's trying to project something with this album. This isn't just a collective of songs that he's like, hey, just put this one on there, put that one on there. No, it's a cohesive project in my opinion. Now, I can understand why somebody would be like, hey, the first 4 songs, I guess, sound so much different from the other ones. But I just feel like it's not that deep, you know what I mean? And this is what he wanted to do, and this is what he envisioned. I think that if you're true Isaiah Rashad fans, you should be really happy with this album because it's not a bad album. It's, like I said earlier, it's one of the better albums. So... But this is coming from a guy who isn't the biggest Isaiah Rashad fan. Not because I never hated him before, but this was actually my first time really listening to him. I would have to go back to his other 2 projects to see why fans really were anticipating this album. So shouts out to Isaiah Rashad. Good album, good effort. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Spence.
Well, you can go ahead. Good.
The way I actually agree with a lot of what you said, Lau. I was listening to it, the other morning, and I've been anticipating this album for a while. Since, the Lay With You track came out, I really was digging it early in the year. My issue with the album is more or less, like you said, Lau, like it doesn't really, I would say the pace of the album just really slows down. And that's not an issue, but it's like, I know that for other listeners, it can be a problem where it's like, hey, look, you have these upbeat, kind of middle of the road, upbeat, kind of middle of the road, then it's like, all right, we just kind of cruising out through the rest of the album. Now, me personally, you also got to think, right? Isaiah Rashad's last album, The Sun's Tirade, was most of those tracks were along the lines of the latter half of this album. I like The Sun's Tirade. I thought it sounded good. It's not my favorite album ever, but it's not bad. I think this album, it sounds good, but I can take some songs out of like the track list and then be all right. And it's like I can kind of be picky and choosy with it. But I do like pretty much every song on this project. Now, that being said, though, I think I would give this album probably like a 3 out of 5, just because, like, to me, it's like it's very listenable. It's very good, but it's not necessarily, I would consider it to be like a great album. You know what I mean? I think it slides in my top 10, but I would have to really think as to what albums all are in my top 10, because I can't tell you off the top of my head. But that being said, though, I think it is definitely worth a listen. It's definitely one of the better albums that come out this year for a fact.
Yeah. So I can definitely say that we all have different opinions when it comes to this album. Because to me personally, I as if you're a person like Lau was saying that's not familiar with a lot of his work, I could understand like not being the biggest fan of it, or it's something new. It's just completely new to your ears all around, right? Especially when there's like a 5-year gap between Sun's Tirade and this project here. I think maybe 1 or 2 singles in between, but that's not a lot over a 5-year span. But to me, listening to this album, personally, I think this is like an amazing album. As a fan of I'm a huge fan of Sons of Tirade, huge fan of Sylvia's demo, fan of just about all of Isaiah Rashad's features that I've ever heard. That even when this album came out, as soon as I knew it came out probably like 12:30 that morning, I just started listening to it. And I've pretty much listened to this album for like almost like 2 days, a day and a half possibly. And primarily I had to actually fit in some other albums as well before we had to record, of course. But I don't know. To me, I thought it was an amazing album. Personally, to me, because we're doing solid numbers out of 5, I would just say it's a 4. Personally, I just can't give it a 5. It's very close to a 5 for me, though. Personally, though I do agree there aren't a lot of songs that hit heavy like the singles that we did here. I do think he's still able to illustrate some of this stuff even in a different way with like 9-3 freestyle, right?
Right.
Where and it's like closer to the end. It's like the second to last or third to last song on the album. So he was able to find a way of keeping that balance. But for the most part, a lot of the album is very much him rapping within the beat and not on the beat, if that makes any sense. For listeners that may not understand when I say that, I'm saying that his vocals are more blended within the beat. So it's like I can understand when you're not having that 808 thumping through super hard on a hyped up beat and someone's like rapping, it can not be someone's cup of tea in so many words. So I can definitely understand that. But to me, I think Isaiah Rashad had a great album. I think this album actually, to me, shows that he's definitely, when it comes to TDE, he's going to be the next leg and carrying that torch. I do believe there's always been there's a lot of backstory between him and his relationship with Top Dog, especially over that, even between Sun's Tirade and Sylvia's demo. I think there was a moment in time when he had drug problems. Top Dog sent him to rehab, sent him back home, all of this stuff. For this album, I think this just kicks off TDE and just in a more promising light, especially as we anticipate SZA, as we anticipate Kendrick Lamar, as well. Personally, I'm also anticipating J-Rock, who's actually, over the past few years, he's definitely became one of my favorite rappers out of TDE. And he even had a great verse on this album as well.
He did.
So it's, I don't know. I think this is just, I think this is the perfect blend of Isaiah Rashad from what fans met initially to what the popular sound is today, that he can blend both of those two. So
also,
go ahead, Nacho.
I was about to say, Isaiah Rashad said that people were putting sugar in their greens, and I don't know who's doing that shit, but that shit's really weird, and whoever's doing that needs to stop.
Nah, you'd be surprised. It's the same people that put sugar in their mac and cheese.
Sugar and mac and cheese, I'm cool with. Not in the greens.
No.
It's happened. It's happened. Yo, the best mac and cheese I'm just saying, yo.
I've had mac and cheese with sugar in it, and I've said no.
Have you had greens with sugar in it?
No.
Yeah, exactly. Me neither.
But you see what two things coincided with each other? I don't eat mac and cheese with sugar like I don't eat my greens with sugar, my friend.
Wow, what were you about to say?
I was going to say, shouts out to that song, True Story, with J Rock and Jay Worthy. And I really want to shout out Jay Worthy for real, because I feel like this is a guy who's a bit on the underground scene. He's been rapping with like your Larry Junes, your Action Bronsons, your Jerry Perico. He's actually have songs like Griselda artists and shit like that, like Conway and El Camino, et cetera, et cetera. But for him, I think for him to get a feature on the Isaiah Rashad album, it's like a big step up from what he's been doing in the past. Meaning like, and he also had a feature earlier on the Fraud Department project with Jim Jones. So shouts out to Jay Worthy. He's getting a little more notarized. Let me just say that. But yeah, the album, I'm not mad with Spencer's take on the album. He is an Isaiah Rashad fan, so he knows what to expect a bit more than what I would. But as a new guy, there's, shouts out to Isaiah Rashad. I don't have anything bad to say about this album. Like, no hard criticism if it was like some, crybaby baby auto-tune guy.